to the show with your friend and mine. So tell me, Dr. Squee, who's it gonna be this time? We like to hear you talk, but we love to hear you listen. And if you are not subscribed, you won't know what you're missing. So welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Headphones up. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. I'm Dr. Squee and this is my show. Tonight, I am really excited. And now, for anyone who listened to the last show, I was speaking to my fellow SW20 radio presenter, the jazz educator himself. And I was talking to him regarding Craig Webb, I should say. I was talking to him in part about the fact that I'm in the process at the moment of getting diagnosed with ADHD, something which has been obviously greatly on my mind, and it kind of recontextualizes everything from my past. So I'm really excited to talk to tonight's guest. She is the co-host of the Neurodivergent Moments Podcast with Joe Wells, a new podcast focusing on neurodivergency and the small moments in life that makes us realize that our brains work differently. Her new show, Legally Cheeky, is now touring. She's a rising star on TikTok, where she has stand-up clips and has amassed over 10 million views and has over 100,000 followers. Please welcome to the Dr. Squee Show, Abigoliah Schamaun. Please welcome to the show. I was so pleased at getting your name out right. I just lost it at the end there.
It's okay. You did great. One time I was brought on stage by someone who I had known for years. We won't name the comedian, Hannibal Buress. And he brought me on as Abigoliah. Oh, no. And that's when he realized he's never said my name out loud, my last name. He had no idea what it was.
You see, that's the thing. Your first name makes us think that's going to be tricky. So when we nail that, we think, oh, yeah, we're right to the races.
Yeah.
Then we see the surname. It's like, oh, no.
Whenever I do shows anymore, I just tell the MC, especially if they're like newer to comedy and I can tell they're nervous about it. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, say anything and I'll just walk on. I'll tell them my name. I won't even acknowledge you said it wrong. No one's going to know you said it wrong. Like, it's fine.
I absolutely love it. And I mean, it just makes me think of, like, I mean, my problems compared with name-wise are very small, but my name's Ian, spelled I-A-I-N by birth. And the amount of times that just even with an extra I, people kind of call me Lane, or like, because they think the I is a lowercase L. Yeah, and then so I came up with Dr. Squee because I thought, okay, yeah, no one can misspell that. Then people put DR and something. How are you tonight anyway? How are you doing?
I'm good. I cannot complain. I am hanging out in my office, which is like, how great. You know, when the whole pandy thing happened, I really didn't like doing gigs via Zoom and stuff, and I still don't, but God bless this whole, hey, let's all go online to do podcasts. Like, it's just so great. What are you doing today? I have a show at 6:30. From the waist down, I'm in pajama pants. I love it.
No, I literally took my dressing gown off just before we went on air. It's the English spring. Like, it's okay during the day, but you wouldn't want to go out in the evening in it.
Exactly.
One thing I absolutely love about the podcast, as I was talking to you just before we came on air, discovering it has really helped me contextualize a lot of stuff as well. It's a lot of the stuff which I'm thinking about at the moment, your guests have been through. But what I really love is that even the artwork, the poster for your podcast is perfect, because you've got ADHD and there you are with your colorful hair, striking a pose, like very big, brassy, and your co-host Joe, who's got autism, is looking away from the camera off to one angle. Like, it even exemplifies just in that picture everything you need to know about the show.
Yeah. Those we're actually going to have the artwork changed pretty soon and have it more professionally done. I came up with that that template, which is why it looks like it was done with someone who has no graphic design experience. But those photos are press photos that we had done for two separate shows. So they're in no way like connected to each other. They weren't taken to appear in the same place. And so it's become, it was a bit of a mess to try to figure out which ones worked best for the podcast of all the photos we have of each other. And finally, I just gave up and I was like, that's good enough. Which that's the real ADHD thing of like just being like, I've spent 4 hours doing this and I've done a mediocre job at the end.
I swear I am here. I'm having a few camera and audio issues, which
I
is
figured with just to keep talking no matter what. But
Yeah.
are you okay? Yeah.
yeah, I can hear you. It's just, well, as you can imagine, oh God, this is so freeing that I can like talk about all this stuff kind of like without worrying about it. It's like, this is really not great for someone with like the form of ADHD, which I think I've got is inattentive.
Mhm.
Like, oh, stuff like this will just mess with my mind so badly. So I think we're stable now.
It's okay.
Yeah. So like I did want to talk a bit about your journey with ADHD. So like me, you were diagnosed later on in life. When did you first kind of like find out you might have ADHD?
So coming out of lockdown, my partner Tom kind of went through a lot of self-discovery. He came out as queer and dresses a little bit more femme now, and also did some research and thought he might be autistic. And I was like, I know. I mean, we would have known by now, right? Dude, like I was in denial of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And he went and got tested. And it turns out he is in fact autistic. And he was like, I think you might have ADHD. And I was like, I would know by now. And I was actually tested for learning disabilities when I was very, very young.
Right.
And this is kind of sad, but the doctor's diagnosis was like, there's nothing clinically wrong with her. She's just a bit slow. And I've like taken that on like my entire life of just like, I'm just kind of slow. I'm just not a particularly smart person. And Tom's like, you just can't organize. Like, and we had a fight about it. And finally he was like, ever since we've been together now 8 years, and he's like, ever since I've known you, you've always been upset that you like want to do more and you can't do more, and you want to have more organization, but you don't have more organization, and you've constantly fought this. How long are you going to wait until you figure out what it is? Are you going to wait another 10 years? Are you, just go and see if you have it. So I made an appointment, and Tom and I both did go private. So I only throw that out there for those of you who are like, how did she do this so quickly? We did pay, we did go private. And I told the doctor in my assessment, I was like, I don't know if I have it. My partner thinks I have it. I don't know if I do. Whatever happens in this assessment, I'm fine. I'm not like, oh, like I definitely have it. I need help. And, I took the assessment and the doctor was like, oh, you have it. You 100% have it. And yeah, so I started ADHD medication, and my partner then shortly after getting diagnosed autistic, he also tested himself or got tested for ADHD, which he has as well. So he's ADHD and autistic because he always likes to one up me. And
you may be the first household I've heard of which has a grant just for itself.
Oh yeah, yeah. But neither of us are organized enough to apply for it. That's the problem.
Perfect. Yeah, because it's like it's as I say, it's like hearing all the stories from the show, but also hearing your story. It just chimes with so much stuff for me because I was diagnosed with dyslexia at school, which I didn't know. I'd already passed the bar for neurodivergency. I didn't know dyslexia counted, so that's nice to already have in the bank as well. But it's like I then, like when I was at school, I was tested or my mum wanted me tested for ADHD, but I didn't like pass enough kind of like bars to qualify for being tested. And so hearing about this stuff about inattentive ADHD, which I'd never even heard of until a friend of mine who's diagnosed with it, pretty much the same as what you're saying. She said, no, look, I think you are. And I was like, no, come on. I think I would have known by now, surely.
Yeah.
But it's all these kind of like different types and different varieties and different kind of like ways of being neurodiverse that we're discovering, which seems just to change the game, really.
Yeah, and so much of it has to do with like thought pattern or thought process, as it were. And you don't share a lot of the inner workings of your mind with people on a regular basis. Like, I mean, you might tell your friends and stuff, but like you never talk really deeply in general conversation of how you arrive at a conclusion or how you were able to complete a certain task or, that sort of thing. And so you just think what's going on in your mind is how everyone's mind works. And it's interesting when you start talking to people and you're like, no, not everyone's mind does that. That's a your mind thing. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example right now. Just for me, the big thing is like the huge bursts of energy followed by complete paralysis. And it's called task paralysis, when it's like you want to do something, but for some reason you can't start. And and it's been my whole life where it's like I'll have like 2 days of great of getting a lot done, and then I'll just be like, it's like wiped out for like 24 hours.
I just had a couple of days like the same thing. I had like a days of productivity, and then just for the last 48 hours I felt just drained, just like there was nothing I could do. And another story, I'm going to just keep on nicking from your podcast, sorry about this, but it's like it's
Neurodivergent Moments, for those of you guys who are listening at home. Neurodivergent Moments podcast.
Check it out wherever you get your podcasts, especially if you think you might have some neurodivergency or you do. It's a wonderful resource for sort of sharing stories and knowing you're not on your own. That was the best feeling I got from it. It was Angela Barnes talking about, the only measurement we have for if someone has got a task to do, they could capable of doing it and they don't do it. The only measurement of that we have is that they're lazy, or that we had, historically.
Yeah.
And just hearing that there might be a reason why I have that, because and I think it also kind of links in, if you do suffer with any kind of depression or anything, your ability to sink further into that depression and get less done during that time, I think is exacerbated as well.
Yeah, because there's a lot of shame around not being able to get certain things done when you want to do them or you're expected to do them. So of course there's that. And also what causes ADHD, or what it is a lack of dopamine in the body. So dopamine is like the happy one of the hormones that is released in the body. Is it a hormone? Is it chemical? I might be using the wrong word there, but it helps regulate your mood. It makes you happy. You can get more by like exercise, doing things that are fun or joyful. And everyone has a certain level of dopamine just kind of like in their body, but people with ADHD have less than everyone else. So you have to go out and seek that dopamine. You have to find ways to create it in your body. So like I said, you could do things like working out or things that make you happy, but also dopamine can be created by doing things last minute, and that pressure of trying to get something done and then pulling it off at the last minute can create that. People with ADHD, and I don't fall into this category, can often be like people who are thrill seekers, in the sense that skydiving and stuff like that they might be into, because it'll give you that dopamine reward. And one thing that happened for me when I started ADHD meds, I was talking to the doctor and I was like, another thing I want to check out is get my depression sorted, and maybe talk to a therapist about starting antidepressants again. I've been on and off them since I was very young. And he was like, put a pin in that and let's start you on ADHD meds, because sometimes when you start ADHD meds, your depression goes away. And that is what happened for me. Now, it doesn't happen to everyone. I'm not saying, I want a huge disclaimer out there. If you are on ADHD meds and you are on antidepressants, do not listen to this and just stop taking your antidepressants. If you feel you need antidepressants or are now researching that, continue that. That might work for you. But antidepressants like what's it called? Serotonin. What that does is that helps bring up your serotonin, which is another happy hormone in your body, but it's different than dopamine. So it appears in my own body what I needed was dopamine. And now I feel I just don't have that doom in my head that I used to. This got really serious. I don't know if this is supposed to be a comedy podcast, but
it's a chat show. It can be whatever we want it to be. It's fine. It's fine. I'm just actually, it's a bit of a weird experience for me, because I usually like to put the guest front and center, which I hope I'm doing with you as well. But it's like I don't usually talk in my own experience as much. So this is so out of my usual comfort zone to talk about me a bit more. So yeah, thank you for indulging me. And something which
that is the most British thing ever, by the way, to be like, I'm sorry for talking about myself on my own podcast stream chat show. I apologize. You don't need to. And I'm pretty sure I just did a 10-minute monologue. So don't you worry. I'm getting enough airtime.
Oh, it is so lovely as well. That's the other thing. When I'm talking to other people who've got ADHD, I don't have to worry about the conversation. Like I am constantly nervous of silence and conversation. It's something I've got better at and learned to let things breathe. Yeah. But when I've got someone else who I know can talk, it's like, oh, it's just the weight is off my shoulders. Something which you talked about, which made me think a lot about, was being diagnosed later in life. And like I've got a few things which this kind of like chimes in with. The fact that I knew I was dyslexic at school, but there wasn't a lot known about dyslexia, meant that I was forced to sort of like work in the way that people without dyslexia worked, which actually I feel like is a strength. It means I can work, like, I never learned to use left-handed scissors, even though I'm left-handed, because everywhere you go, you're going to get right-handed scissors. So it's kind of useful to know how to use right-handed scissors. My son has got autism, and we were told by his teachers not to tell him when he was younger, and we told him when he was older, which I don't know the wisdom of. I don't know if it was a good thing or not. I do know that I do feel like maybe he would have lent on it more when he was at school. However, like, that understanding would have helped him a great deal as well. And so I'm asking all these questions about ADHD now. How do you feel about finding out when you're older, and do you wish you'd found out when you were younger?
Can I ask how old your son was when you told him?
So he was late at school, I believe, just like about school, college, kind of end of school, beginning of college kind of age.
For me personally, and I'm pretty sure it's for Joe as well, if I can speak for him, and he is, for those listening, is my co-host on Neurodivergent Moments, who's autistic. We both wish we had known earlier. I think if you know earlier, you're still going to have to cope with the world that is given to you, but you know why you're coping. So I like, again, going back to not knowing what my ADHD symptoms were and being told it's because you're lazy or because you're flighty or because you're absent-minded and all of these words that you just internalize and find shame. It's like, oh no, it's because I have ADHD. And now that I know it's because I have ADHD, there are some things that I can ask for help or special allowances for. Like it takes me a long time to read. Now, if I had known that as a kid, I could have asked for extra time during tests because it takes me a really long time to read. And then as far as like things that you can't change that like is existing in a neurotypical world, you can find coping mechanisms or resources to help you get it done or get through it, basically. I really do think I can understand why people are like, oh, because I didn't know, I learned how to do this and that. And yeah, but you would have learned how to do that anyways. You just also would have known why you couldn't, why it was so
Yeah.
hard for you.
I
Does
mean,
that make sense?
yeah, I think what I'm starting to realize is I've taken on a lot of the arguments that were presented to me. And it's like, because of all the years of not understanding myself, like again, another brilliant line just which encapsulated a lot from your podcast was when Rufus Hound was saying, it's like, he was talking about his ex-wife, and he was saying it's like, and if anyone is getting the impression from this that I have anything against that woman, it's like, no, like if I didn't understand myself, how could she? And that encapsulates a lot of stuff for me, because I look back on like things I didn't understand about myself and other people not understanding me. And of course they didn't, because I didn't understand myself. But it's all those arguments about, like when I was at school and people would say, they said so many times that I was being lazy, that I'd taken that on myself. Like now looking back and contextualizing everything, I know that's not the case. I know it was not possible for me to do that work or to concentrate without knowing what was happening, or without putting the tools in place to help me. So even though I asked the question, I'm very much on your side of the answer of like, I think early diagnosis is the best thing, especially now that there are more tools available. Like when I was at school, probably the number of tools which I had available to me, even if I was diagnosed, would have been a lot less than you'd get at school now.
Yeah. Yeah, and we find out when we find out, and I know it's been interesting doing the podcast, because I have a lot of people like you who reach out and say how helpful it's been. Both Joe and I do. I recently got asked to do a talk about neurodivergency and queerness and the intersectionality of it at a very big corporation, and this person who I was on the phone with was like, talking about what they want from the talk was like, I just feel like I need a pen and paper to when I listen to your podcast, because I learned so much. And I'm like, I just found out that I had ADHD like 2 years ago. I am not the what is it, the expert on neurodivergency, and it's both exciting and very scary that so many people are like, you've helped me so much, I learned so much. Because I'm like, what are you fucking learning? I'm just talking bullshit the whole time. Anyone who's learning anything, they're learning it from Joe. Listen again. Joe is the one referencing books. Joe is the one asking good questions, and I'm there being like, sometimes do you ever have a thought and then you think about the bees? And everyone's like, I guess we'll make sense of what she's saying.
Hey, come on, look, I mean, what could be a better example than the autistic guy being very well researched and knowing every book to research, and the ADHD person just kind of winging it?
Yeah, that's very true.
You're living by example.
But yeah, I mean, we all find out these things when it happens, and I think what's important is just once we learn about our own neurodivergencies or other people in our life, is to learn what we can when we can, and not beat ourselves up for not knowing in the past. I think especially, I read somewhere, I can't remember what it was, but sometimes people, when they get diagnosed with ADHD or autism, they go through a mourning period of what could have been if they had known. How would my life have been different? Maybe I could have completed this course. Maybe I could have. And I remember, and this was just in private conversation, but I think it's okay for me to say this. After I got diagnosed, I was talking to Angela Barnes, and I was like, oh, if I had known, maybe I would have had this type of success, and maybe I wouldn't be here in my career. Maybe I'd be over there in the shiny bit that I've always wanted. And, kind of like, oh, if I had known, my life would have been so great. And she just kind of goes, if I had known, I'd probably still be a nurse. Like, that's what Angela was before she was a stand-up comedian. She was a nurse. And she's like, I don't think I would have like chased that dopamine. I don't think I would have found myself in this comedy career that's opened this world. And I mean, God knows she's incredibly successful. She's very talented, a funny comedian. And like, and if I look back and I really think if I had known I had ADHD, I might not live in the UK. You know, I still might be in New York and be a yoga instructor. And like, you know, I wouldn't be here doing this. So I think we find out when we, not to be all like the universe tells us, but we find out when we find out. And I think it's okay to be fine with where we're at in that moment.
I think to begin with, I know exactly the mourning period you're speaking of. Like, I think of all the kind of failed relationships, all the kind of jobs which I didn't stick with, all these different things which I was so flighty towards. And like, oh, what if I made this last? What if I done that differently? And now I'm more on the stage of like, hey, what can I do now? What is now possible? Because I understand myself better. Also, something you were saying about there is, I think you also go back like I'm very bad at letting things go. I've become better at it over the years, but like there's some memories even from back when I was a kid which I've never really been able to let go of, because they were awkward moments. There were moments of embarrassment or moments where I did the wrong thing or whatever, or, you know, to my mind at the time I did the wrong thing. I kind of found myself taking stock and kind of I'm letting more of that stuff go as I go. Did you find that when you discovered your diagnosis?
Yeah, I simultaneously have those moments that I can't let go of that are very embarrassing, but at the same time, I don't remember a lot of my past, which might be a trauma response of some sort. But yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know. I was talking to someone the other day about this. It's kind of weird. I guess I've let things go that maybe I hadn't before. But at the same time, I'm someone who, like, when I think of my past, I don't think of like, it's almost like looking at a different person. So I lived in New York from the age of 18 to 28, and then I moved to the UK. So New York Abigoliah is a different Abigoliah. That's a different person than who I am today. In my childhood, where I grew up in Ohio, like, so if we think of the years I actually remember, like, you know, high school, middle school, that is a completely different person. Like, I see them as separate. Obviously, it is all me, and it's molded me into the human I am today, and I'm so thankful for that. But at the same time, I'm not like, I don't know, it's weird. I also have trouble keeping in touch with people, so I very rarely talk to anyone from high school or even New York. And I would still consider those people like the best of friends. It's not like I stopped talking to them because of some fallout or internal dislike or thinking they don't like me. It's just I have trouble keeping in touch with people. So yeah, so that's probably another reason why I feel like it's so separate from who I am now.
And you mentioned that, you know,
I don't think that answered your question at all, by the way.
No. You even if you don't answer the question I've asked, you answer another one which I was thinking of anyway. Like, I think that is a shared trait, that thing of not staying in touch. I think there is a thing about, you know, because of our more flighty minds.
It's called object permanence, and ADHD people have trouble with it. That's why a lot of times ADHD people will sometimes have doom piles or doom boxes. Like, if I have, excuse me, if I have a bit of paperwork that needs to be done, it's got to be on the desk. If I put it in a drawer, if I can't see it, it doesn't exist. And that doesn't just extend towards like paperwork and things. It also extends to people, which is really bizarre when you think about it in some ways, and it makes sense in other ways. Like, it can be a lot harder to stay in touch with someone when you don't see them on a regular basis. And it's not even, for me, it's not even like it's not like I don't even think about those people. I do think about those people, but I always think about those people at a time where reaching out is like, you know, it'll be 2 a.m. in America, or like 5 a.m. because of the way the time difference works. So that's not a good time to call mom. And then by the time it is a good time to call my mom, I'm like off doing something else. So I didn't get the chance. And then, it goes for days and days and days. And
I
then,
also think our brains are purposely obtuse in that way. Like they purposely, I'm going to say, I think my brain is purposely giving me stuff I can't action at the time when it thinks of it. I think it's purposely doing it when I'm working, when my mind knows I can't call my mum, when I know I've got to call her.
yeah,
It's working against me. I swear. It's my excuse and I'm sticking to it.
I like that. You know what? I think it makes sense. I think it makes perfect sense.
And you said that you went private to get your diagnosis.
Mhm.
Could you tell us a bit about the process of that? And the one thing which I'd had put me off kind of going that route was the fact that some people had said that it then might make it more difficult to get a prescription through the NHS. Did you find that, or maybe you could tell us, dispel a few myths there as well?
That has not been my experience. I will say, rumor has it, I don't know if this is true, but at least in some clinics, there is now a waiting list in private as well.
Yeah,
Because
6
so many
months.
people, yeah.
Yeah.
So it might vary clinic to clinic. It is less, it is less of a waiting period, but it is, I think that now exists. When I did it, maybe it took 3 months to get the appointment. And then once I had the appointment and I got the diagnosis, so what happens is you do like a 90-minute Zoom. We did it over Zoom because that's the time. And they still do a lot of them over Zoom. And they asked me a lot of questions, none of which I can particularly remember. I do remember him asking me if I fidgeted, if I was a person who'd fidget. And I was like, yes, I'm doing it right now. And, I was like, all you could see is from here up. And my hands are like literally like doing this the whole time. But, and he was like, yeah, you got it. Now, what happened after that was I was given the option of whether I wanted to start medication. And I said, yes, please. And because ADHD medication is an amphetamine, they can't just be like, here you go. So you have to go through a physical. So they want you to get an EKG, so to check your heart, and you have to do blood work. So what they did is the private clinic then writes to my GP. My GP then makes an appointment through the NHS to do my blood work and get my EKG. The GP then takes that information and gives it back to the clinic. The clinic then goes, okay, she's healthy, she's ready to go, we can put her on ADHD meds. And you start what's called a titration period. A titration period is when they start you on a low dose and they slowly move you up to a dose that you yourself find suitable to help manage your ADHD. There are different types of ADHD medication, and I don't know all the names of them, so I can't tell you. But I can tell you that sometimes they might put you on one that you find it doesn't work too well for you. They put me on one. I was like, this is freaking great. And I was good. I have one friend who had to switch from one medication to another. My boyfriend is on his titration period now, and his medication doesn't seem to react as well as mine does for me. So, and this is what they're checking. They're checking dosage. They're checking type. They might move you off one ADHD medication and try a different one. They might move you up. Oh, that's too high. We'll move you back down. While you're on this titration period, you also have to take your blood pressure. I think you're supposed to do it every day. Of course, they tell us every day because we all have ADHD. So they know they're lucky to get 3 readings a week.
Yeah.
Part of that is to make sure that you don't, your blood pressure doesn't spike, because again, it's an amphetamine. So it's going to raise, they're making sure that you stay in this healthy realm as you're on this medication. And then finally, you decide with your doctor, hey, this is the medication for me. This is the dosage for me. Once they do that, the doctor then writes a letter of care of, can't remember what's officially called, but basically going back to it again, the private clinic then writes a letter to the NHS, your GP, saying, I've looked after Abigoliah and took her through the titration period for ADHD medication. this is the medication she's on, this is what works for her, and then you go back into the NHS. I will say, and this is important, so the obviously when you go private, you have to pay for the test and your weekly, not weekly, they're more like monthly or every 2-week check-ins with your doctor as you're getting your medication level sorted. You also pay privately for your medication. And that is, depending on which one they have you on, anywhere between 80 to 100 quid a bottle. 30 days worth of pills in a bottle. And then you go back to the NHS and it's $9.30. It costs what it does on the NHS. So it is, if you decide to go private, just remember when we're talking about the cost of it, it's not just the initial diagnosis, it's the diagnosis and the appointments afterwards and the medication. It all adds up.
So the main thing to do is when you're first kind of looking at a clinic to go with, to make sure you get all the costings.
Ask them what it'll wind up being. Of course, you could just like get your diagnosis and take it back to your GP and see if they'll take you through the process themselves. But the one thing I will say that I thought was really cool about a private clinic, and I think this is more of an American realization, is they want you out of it. They're like, we'll get you diagnosed, we'll get you stable, we're throwing you back into the NHS, as opposed to like being like, now you're our patient and we'll look after you because the NHS is busy. They're like, no, we're you'll go back there. We're just going to get you level, as opposed to like being a customer for life, which is sometimes how American healthcare can work a bit, Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's a really kind of clear picture of it. For yourself, like you're working as a stand-up comedian, you get this diagnosis, and stand-up, like to a lot of stand-ups, is about like talking about yourself. Like you seem to be a stand-up who kind of talks about your own experiences. What is it like to sort of overnight have that image of yourself changed, and how does that affect your stand-up? What was your stand-up like before diagnosis and after?
I mean, I've always talked autobiographically. So as far as like what I talk about, I've always talked about kind of what's going on in my own life and or what's banging around my head at the time. So obviously my subject matter has changed as I've lived a life, but what's really changed is the way that I write stand-up, and in the fact so much as I actually fucking write it down now. My last Edinburgh show, Legally Cheeky, that I'll be performing on February 23rd at the Leicester Comedy Festival, if you are in town, is the first show I've ever written out verbatim. And I had a script for it. And because of that, I would then, like, I'd still do what I do, which is like, is this an idea? And you go on stage and you just kind of like talk it out. And then I'd be like, okay, that's funny. I'll go back and work on it. But because I had the written script out in front of me, I'd be like, oh, there's like a huge chunk without a punchline that I'm just rambling. We can cut all that and put in a punchline. So, and the ability to do that has streamlined my ability to write jokes. I can come up with stuff quicker. I can finish it quicker. And it stopped me from waffling too much on stage. And it's taken a lot of the fat off of my work, as it were.
Yeah. And something I'm learning about is kind of like harnessing upswings in mood to kind of put lists and things in place. So like the lists on my phone are just so useful now. And trust me, the amount of people who over the years told me, you just write things down, make lists of things. And I've never been able to put it together to do it. The fact that you can just do it on your phone now is so great. You just got something in your pocket. So it's like whenever I'm like, okay, I'm feeling like in an upswing in mood. I want to do something, but I don't know what I'm meant to be doing right now. And like, as we've both been saying, it's like it's hard to organize your thoughts and organize what you're doing when. So the fact that I've got something written down in notes is so useful now.
Yeah.
But it seems like, so yes, like everyone's been telling you all these years, but without that part of the puzzle, mean that, yeah, you have to put the systems in going right, and then when things are so easy, you've got those things to fall back on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And everyone works a little differently. Like I have a whiteboard that I basically do the same thing. I have a big list of stuff I have to do, and then I have a today list of stuff I'm going to do that day, but on one side is just literally like all the things I need to do, but I either forget to do or they're like big tasks. So it like will take me a lot of energy, and I'll move like one over a day, you know?
Yeah.
So like, you know, I'm not like trying to file my taxes and write a comedy script and you know, write a treatment for a sitcom all in one day. I'm like, those are 3 big things. I'll file my taxes today and go on a walk and do my show. Like that's what I'm doing today, as opposed to be like, say I'm going to do 300 things and then be mad when I didn't.
I think also that thing of like the refractory period. So like you, right, if I've had a day,
Oh,
the next day I'm having a crash, that's okay.
Yeah. And now, and it doesn't always work out the way I want it to, but like I schedule in shutdown days now. Like I'll be like, Sunday, I'm not doing, and when I say I'm not doing anything, listeners at home, I'm not like, it's my day off, so you know, I'll go and I'll do the laundry and I'll sort out all the little house. I mean, it is the day I give myself permission to do nothing. I do not have to cook. I can order every freaking meal from Deliveroo if I want. I do not have to get dressed. I do not have to shower. I do not have to do anything. Now, if I wake up that day and I want to do something, I can do something, but it is a day of complete permission to do nothing. So I give myself a bit of a rest. So next week I will get more done. And that's worked out pretty well for me. I now have like I can work 5-6 days in a row before I have to like just kind of shut down and do nothing. I know this is a bit of a privileged place to be. Like I can take a day and do absolutely nothing. I don't have children. I don't have a lot of outside sources that constantly need my attention. Like if I'm not working, I don't have a boss I'm beholden to. I don't have staff to manage. I can just take it, you know. I don't, like I said, I don't have children to look after. But even if you can't do a day, which I know a lot of people couldn't, like try to schedule it in just like an afternoon, an hour, you know.
And sometimes it's even about just my expectations of myself on that day. It's like, right, I'm having a real down day. I've got to work, but I don't have to do the most work today. Like that sounds really bad, but it's like yesterday I got so much done for work because I was in an upswing. They got a really great day out of me. They got twice as much done as like most people did in that day probably. Whereas today, okay, I can do what I need to keep the ship afloat with what I do for a living. This doesn't have to be the biggest day ever.
Yeah,
it's like
totally. And I still have that too. Like today's one of those days for me. Like I had my day off yesterday and I thought I'd feel really good today. And I call them like low functioning days. Like, you know, I've sent a couple emails and like, well, I've gotten to do this and talk to you and I've had to actually, when I say it out loud, like I worked today, I did work, but it's not like, I didn't do, you know, like you said, it's like I didn't do everything in the world. It's just like I've done what was scheduled and there will be no more than what is scheduled today.
Yes, that's very good way of putting it. Something else which I just love finding out about is also the terminology. So I've learned that if you're right, I'm going to get this right. If you are not by yourself neurodiverse, that's a sample set of people who are different stages of the neuro pathways, if you like, whereas you're a neurodivergent if you're an individual. The terminology is just amazing and how it's kind of like changing and evolving constantly. How have you found navigating all that?
Okay, hold on. As you say this, I'm like specifically looking up. Oh God, I think I have it on my external hard drive. Joe Wells, my no, I can't plug it in because I have my freaking Joe Wells, my partner in crime, wrote a book called it must be called Wired Differently, because I always want to call it Differently Wired. And in the beginning of the book, he talks about the terminology around neurodivergency and neurodiversity, and breaks it down pretty succinctly. And that's kind of where I've based all my Joe's basically told me what to say. And so why am I trying to make this on? I say what Joe says is right. But one is, it's always changing. Yeah. So it used to be like people used to say, some autistic people used to be diagnosed and say they have Asperger's, where Asperger's, I never say it right in my accent.
I believe it's Asperger's. It was pronounced over here, but in America it was pronounced as Asperger's.
Yeah.
Which sounds hilarious to me.
Yeah.
Asperger's.
And every time I say it, I feel like I'm saying like butt sandwich. But
yeah, exactly. It's like, and I would watch Boston Legal. They had a character on there who had Asperger's, and whenever they pronounced it Asperger's, I was like, yeah, I'm such a child.
But and by the way, if someone ever comes up to me and says that they have Asperger's, I'm never like, actually, technically, now you have, like, how you identify
disorder or whatever they call it now.
Yeah. However you identify your own neurodivergencies is up to you. So neurodiversity, think about it as like universe, is like the universe of neuro people, like, right? So we have like, it's neurotypicals and neurodivergent. So in neurodiversity, we have neurotypical people, we have ADHD people, we have autistic people, we have PTSD, all of these people. But it also includes like neurotypical people as well, because it's the universe of. Then we have neurodivergence. Neurodivergence is the moment where your mind goes, I'm not neurotypical. So that is our group, right? No offense to the tips, but we're talking about us.
Yeah, the normies. You just listen to something else. Don't listen to something else. Listen to this.
Listen to this. But the neurodivergence or the neurodivergencies are your ADHD, your autism, your dyslexia, your dyspraxia, goes on and on. So and that now has become a real annoyance to me when someone refers to neurodiversity when they mean neurodivergency. It's just and Joe and I've talked about it. He's like, it's the most misused probably word right now. Is people confuse them all the time, but it drives me nuts. And it's just because Joe told me about it.
And like it makes it sound like some sort of superhero group, the Neurodivergent. Like, it's awesome. We've got the best name. Like, I love it.
I know, we're amazing.
Something you talk about a lot on the show is the neurodivergent moment. That's what your show's named after, but it's all about those little moments. So what's a good one that's happened to you recently?
Oh, I had a feeling you were going to ask me that. I mean, I think it, like, a positive one is like, I guess I said, like, today I woke up and I can't tell you why, but upon opening my eyes, I was like, nope, not today. So in between sending like 3 emails, 1 meeting, and talking to you. I've just been listening to podcasts and playing like an online phone game, but I'm doing it from my desk because then I'm still at work. Like I won't go downstairs and watch TV until you and I are done with this. I've literally been like, I have had 3 hours between my meeting and talking to you, and I'm like, no, I will sit at my desk and play my game because then it's
And
I'm still active.
in my life, but if I had, maybe I would try with that experience as someone who works from home. I've got a good one actually. Like listening to your show particularly made me think of this one. I was trying to book a guest for the show, and there's a few of these people who you email and they just say, "Oh, not right now, but ask me again later." And one of these said,
"Oh, you froze. You froze. Hold on. I really want to hear this story."
I think we might have just a slight signal issue. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Everything's fine. Yeah.
Awesome. Sorry, I think we've got a little bit of a signal issue, but yeah. There's one of these guests who I message every now and again, and like, yeah, they say, "Oh, I'm not available now, but ask me again in 6 months." And I have that with a few of them. And there was one of them who I wrote back to after the required however long they said, and they wrote back going, "Oh, I've discovered I've got an illness. This isn't really good time." Said previously to write and ask again later. I go, "Oh, is it okay if I ask again later? Look, oh, can you still hear me?"
Yeah, we're okay.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm moving my mouse like that does something
I don't know
for
if
you.
anyone watching at home is getting any of this. Oh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry about this. I don't know what's happening with the signal tonight. Anyway, I'll start again.
So I heard, so where you left off for me was you emailed them and they said they had an illness, so they couldn't do it right now.
Yeah. So what I did in my kind of like what I've been doing with them previously, I just wrote going saying, "Oh, is it okay if I ask you again in 6 months?" They go, "I've just discovered I've got an illness. Can we leave it at that?" I'm going, and I beat myself up for like weeks after that because I was like, "Oh, why?" Like, of course, they've just said they found out they're ill. They didn't give any details. Maybe it's something they don't want to talk about right now.
Yeah.
And
no,
really
I know that feeling.
For me.
I will say one of the nice things about doing a podcast with neurodivergent people is there's a person that we wanted on who is autistic, and we messaged them being like, "Hey, do you think you could do the podcast?" And they did the now's not a really good time. And I was like, "No worries." And then I followed up later and I was like, "What about now? Could you do the podcast?" And then they just wrote back one line, "Thanks, but I actually don't want to do it, period." And I was like, thank you for just saying it.
Yes.
So then I don't have to do the check-in thing. Like, I'm going to keep asking you just go no. And I'm fine with that.
Yes. I'll even write back to people. I go, it's like, they'll say, "Oh, they're not available at this time if it's an agent," or, "Oh, I'm not available this time."
Yeah.
And I'll write back and it's like, "Is this something where you want me, like, can I ask again in 6 months? Or is this you really don't want to do it and it's just your nice way of saying it? Like, please just let me know because I don't want to bother you."
Yeah.
And it's amazing how much time that saves just doing that.
Yeah, no, it's been so great. We've had it a couple of times where we've messaged people and asked them and they don't want to do it for one reason or the other. And, but it's just so lovely to get a straight answer. The one time I haven't gotten a straight answer was because I wasn't emailing with the neurodivergent person. I was emailing with their management. And I was like, and part of me was like, it's like I was playing chicken. I was like, I'm not going to stop until you say no. I'm not going to stop.
But there's people who would have given up on that. Like, I just had an interview with Lloyd Langford the other week. He was over in Australia, so we had a lot of troubles kind of like setting his home and stuff. And if I'd been a normal person about it, if you like, if a neurotypical person about it, probably after a couple of no's, I would have gone, "Oh, okay, well, he's obviously not interested." But he kept going, "No, ask me later." So I'm going, well, I'm going to take him at his word. And I think it's something else that you said about on the podcast. It's about the fact that even the term ADHD, it's got deficit or disorder at the end of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, it's like it's got that side of it, which sometimes it is a hindrance. Other times it's actually really helpful because you've got some persistence, or you've got like a or not persistence is questionable, but you haven't got that thing which says like, well, don't ask this or don't say this, and that actually can be very freeing.
Actually, this is quite a realization for me, because I used to have a joke on stage about how the reason why I'm so persistent is because I'm American, and how when I came over here and I'd ask clubs if I could play clubs, and they'd be like, sorry, we're full, sorry, we're full, sorry, we're full. And I just wouldn't let up. And I always thought it was British people being British people and me being bullshit American. And now that we're talking about it, I'm like, oh no, it was a neurodivergent thing. That I just didn't understand that this was like, thank you, but no. I was like, I can message you in 6 months. I'll put it in my calendar right now. No problem. And it was just like slowly bullying my way into the comedy scene in the UK through politeness, persistence, and emails riddled with typos.
Yeah, I mean, and you just put it down to whatever you've got, like because you don't know, like you've got ADHD, so you put it down to other things. I put it down to, I think differently because I'm dyslexic, so I've got to find different ways of doing learning. So maybe that's what I do. Mental, it doesn't fit at all now. Now I know why I'm doing those things in that way. There are a couple of things I want to get to before I let you go. So TikTok is something you've used as a promotional tool. I'm absolutely fascinated because I don't get it whatsoever. I am a man in my 40s. I'm not going to get it, I don't think. But how did you manage to kind of like use that to gain followers and stuff?
Well, I'll tell you, if any of your listeners log on right now, you are going to see, I don't know what has happened recently, but I have over 120,000 followers, and my last 6 posts don't have over 1,000 views. So I'm very confused right now by it. But really, I make videos. I post my stand-up clips. I used to do where I'd review British biscuits and rate them. I stopped doing that because I was tired of buying so many British biscuits and like forcing myself. It stops being fun after a while. Like eating a few biscuits on camera is fun for a bit, and then you're like, I did 76, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. So I don't know exactly what to explain to you other than like you make videos and you post them. And there's this whole game of posting, especially like short form social media, where what you've really got to do, and what I'm having trouble doing right now because my reach is so low for some reason, is then not think about it and just kind of let it grow on its own. So I had a couple of videos of me doing stand-up go viral, and that's where I got a lot of my followership. But yeah, I mean, it's an app. You scroll through it like any other app. It can suck all your time. Some people take it really seriously and are really like pointed with it. I'm somewhere in the middle of like knowing what I have to do in order to grow or engage. It's all about the engagement. Like there's sometimes where I'm like, I know this won't do particularly well, but also I want to see what happens if I put this out into the world. And sometimes those are the things, that do the best. It's often the thing that I don't think will go viral is the one that goes viral. Whenever I'm like, this is the one, that's never the one anyone cares about.
And the other project I did want to bring up is Just Like Mom Made, the YouTube cooking show, which you've got, which your mum actually guest appeared in one episode.
Yeah, so that was a lockdown or a pandemic project, which I then I meant to make a final video for, and it's now been 2 years and I've yet to make the final goodbye video. But I did it for a year. I said I was going to do a season 2 at the very last video. And I got to it, and it was so hard to do on your own. Like, I was filming it on my phone. I did have someone edit it for me, and they did a great job, but I was filming it, getting on. By the end, I was starting to gather facts about the food and the recipes, which was really interesting. So I was like researching, filming it. I'd get completely dressed up to do it because I wasn't wearing any of my show clothes. So like I was like cooking in like blazers. I'm just like, I'm in like my boyfriend and I did it a couple times, and I wore my prom dress. And just like the organizing the ingredients and measuring them out and putting them out and making sure everything, it took me all day to film one video. And so I just kind of looked at how long it took me to do them and how much it cost me to do them, and how, again, little engagement they were getting, and I stopped doing it. But hopefully if I can ever find a way to like get help with it, or get some sort of funding where I could like hire a cameraman or something like that, I'd love to bring it back, but I just can't. I don't have the headspace to do all of it. But I don't think that I literally think I've just explained 12 minutes why I don't do something, and I didn't explain what it was. It was a cooking show where I would make Southern style and Midwestern American food that my mom made growing up. So my mom was a really, really good cook. And it's literally every meal on that, bar the cheese ball, which was a recipe from my cousin, and I spectacularly screwed that up. My mom made every single one of those for me as a kid. So that's what it is. And I realize that your video is out now, so I guess I'll just keep talking about it. My biggest triumph is the the flourless chocolate macadamian cake with a rum anglaise is probably one of the trickiest things I've ever made. And I only made it that one time on camera, and it turned out freaking fabulous. I've never been more proud of myself in my life.
And I'm hoping all that you've just told me recorded, because I just got kicked out of my own studio there.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry.
At one point I did say, I'm just going to keep talking until you come back on. So I didn't stop. Oh, you froze again. I'm fine on this end. I don't know what's going on. My bars are totally full. Not to blame your internet connection, but I'm not sure if it's mine. Should I just keep talking? Is anyone watching this live? Again. He didn't prompt me with a question to continue talking, so I don't even know what to do at this point. But technically, I'm supposed to be done, so. Okay, he's kicked himself out again. Does anyone watch this streaming? I don't exactly know how this show works. I don't know where I am right now on the internet. I thought I was doing a podcast. And there's this whole video element that I was not prepared for. There we go. There we go.
Abigoliah, I am so sorry for all these technical issues. I think we're just going to call it there, because obviously the gods of internet are mad at me for some unknown reasons. Thank you so much. This has been a really wonderful chat.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah. Do you load this somewhere else after the stream?
So it's currently going out to Facebook, YouTube, and yeah, it's going out live onto Twitch as well. And then it'll go out on my radio show later in a couple of weeks, because I've got a couple of banked at the moment. Speaking of which, actually, the one thing I will try and fit in before the internet decides to kick me out for good. Is there a song I can play for you on the radio show?
Oh.
Anything you want.
Oh, you know what would be a good one? Because like I said, I'm doing my show Legally Cheeky at the Leicester Comedy Festival. But the song that my boyfriend listened to and was like, I listen to this because it reminds me of us, is called Gravity. By is it feature DJ set? Hold on. Gravity. DJ Fresh. So DJ Fresh, Gravity by DJ Fresh featuring Ella Air is the song that my boyfriend listened to and says it reminds him of us. And now when I hear it, I cry because it's the most beautiful lyrics ever.
Oh.
And he's not the most outwardly emotional person, let's say. So when he told me that, I was like, oh my gosh, at 7:34 we have a commenter on YouTube.
Yes,
Vicky
we do.
Kramer, I'm here, and that is my mother. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom. Oh, I was watching your cooking show together earlier.
Yeah, we made blueberry cream pie.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And yeah, we will play that track on the radio show. Anyone who is watching who wants to catch us later on the radio, that will be on the Dr. Squee Show every Tuesday, 6 till 8, sw20radio.co.uk. Abigoliah, please do come back on again. This has been just so much fun. And thank you so much for teaching me and for giving out such a resource as the podcast for people to explore the neurodiverse world.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. Thank you for having me, Dr. Squee. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I've been Dr. Squee. That was my show in a world where you can be truly anything. Please be kind.
Be kind.